for anybody who's a creative who also has to work, it looks different for everyone. So it's not to say like you've got to quit your job and do this. But I think that there does come a point where you have to make the decision of what is the most important thing, because you can't serve two masters.
Hey, Creating Maven. I'm Joy Spencer, your reframe specialist, with one important message. Your real work, it's not your job or your career. Your real work is what you create. And what you create is what sets you apart and makes you incomparable. It's your legacy. I'm here to show you a whole new way of working so you can create with your gifts, make a unique contribution, and finally get paid to be yourself. This is Reframe to Create. Today's guest is someone whose creating journey I've been watching for years. I first met Nana Ekua Brew-Hammond not long after she'd published her first book, Powder Necklace, an absolutely delicious story about a young girl of Ghanaian descent named Lila, who's growing up in London before she gets shipped off to boarding school in Ghana because her mother catches her living the fast life. It's an absolutely amazing book. I love it. And since writing it, Nana has taken the amazing leap of going from her 9-to-5 to creating with her gifts full time as a freelance writer. But her journey hasn't been straightforward at all. And as she shares the twists and turns in this episode, she drops gems and nuggets all along the way that you'll be able to learn from and hopefully use in your creating journey. Okay, Nana, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
I'm really excited to have you here because, as I shared in the intro, you are someone who I've admired over the years because of your commitment to creating with your gifts. And one of the results of this was that amazing book, Powder Necklace, which I absolutely love and recommend to everybody who is interested in African literature. So I just want to thank you right off the bat for honoring your gift and writing so that you could create something that is beautiful that you've put out into the world. And just to get us started and just, for us to get a sense of what your journey has been like, my first question for you is what has been most surprising for you on your winding, twisting, creating journey?
The thing that's been most surprising to me, or I guess, I don't know if surprising is the right word, but the thing that I've had to accept is that there's never going to be a perfect set of circumstances to make it easier. This has been a really long journey for me. Writing Powder Necklace took me many years, took me 4 years to find a literary agent. I think it took another however many years to get a publisher. When I signed the deal with the publisher Simon and Schuster, it was 2008 when the economy crashed. So I had to wait another year before editing even began. And I just remember thinking, like, as I was struggling during the writing of the book, during like waiting for it to come out, etc., that like I can't wait for a time when everything's going to be like perfect and like, all of it will line up. And I Powder Necklace came out in 2010. It is now 2021, and that time has not arrived of perfectly, perfect alignment of circumstances. So it really has just been, yeah, just keep going. And I guess maybe as a follow up to that answer is the thing that's been surprising is I thought after I finished Powder Necklace, it would be super easy to get my next book going and to get it out there. And it has been almost more difficult in different ways. There are so many different twists and turns. My agent, who sold Powder Necklace, left the business. And so it took me 2 years to find a new agent. I worked with that agent for about 3 years, and we just weren't having success selling the book. So we amicably, said, we can't really do anything. So kind of moved on. And then I wrote a children's book. Like literally, I had a dream, and these words came to me, and I wrote this book, and I started looking for children's book agents. But it was something that kind of, the book was almost like making me feel better because it was like for children. It was very like whimsical. At the time it was all in rhyme. So it just made me happy reading it. And I found an agent, and then he said to me, well, and at this time I was still with my old agent, but we were sort of at the end of our, like, we don't know what else to do. And so he said, well, I can definitely sell, because he's mainly a children's book agent. He was like, I can definitely sell this, and, let me see what else you're working on. So I shared with him the adult book that I've been trying to sell forever. And in a series of twists and turns, I ended up reconnecting with the publisher of Powder Necklace, who also wanted to see what I was working on. I shared my book with her, and then I ended up being able to sell it to her. But then that that led to its own journey of the revision process, because this book, I'd been working on it for so many years. What's so interesting is that in the years that I had been working on it, like, again, Powder Necklace came out in 2010. I started that book maybe in like 2011, 2012. And as we've all seen, like, the reception for books by African writers, by Black writers, and the whole industry has really changed. When Powder Necklace came out, Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff were in their infancy. There weren't festivals dedicated specifically to African literature, or if there, I know there were, but there weren't many. And there weren't like African book bloggers, very few. And now there's like a whole apparatus, and even still, like, there, we always want more, but it's just everything has changed, and also more books have come out. And so it's almost like that book was for that time that I was writing it. And so I had to confront, like, wow, I've been working on this book for almost a decade, 9 years as of 2021. And maybe this book is not the book for this time anymore. Like, I might have to just like scrap it. And that was a hard thing to deal with, because writing is such a labor of love for me. It's something that I do, I'm freelancing on the side, and, just juggling life. And so to have put in, and I did so much work, so much research, so much, and to kind of get to the place where it's like, this book that you've put so much into, so many years into, is just not working, not the way it might have worked 7 years ago if it had just come out then. So that's been interesting. But also, it's funny when you were talking about like just being committed. I never really thought of it that way, or I mean, I do know that that's part of it, but I guess hearing that, I guess, is true. Like, it rang true to me. Like, that's something that when I decided that I was going to go for it, when I was going to try to do this writing thing, I think what I remember, even when Powder Necklace came out, and it was very hard because, a new writer, I'm a new writer, no one knows me. Getting press is like real was very difficult, and just getting the word out was really hard. I just remember thinking, like, you just have to fight your way through this. You just have to fight. And I would show up I would do any kind of event. I remember actually, a friend of mine who's also a writer, she's gone on to write so many books, Aisha Haruna Atta. She wrote the book Harmattan Rain. She's a Ghanaian author as well. And she wrote a lovely, beautiful historical fiction novel about Ghana, and her book came out a year before Powder Necklace did. And so we just kind of, I just grabbed her. I was like, you are my friend, and we are going to conquer the world as Ghanaian writers together. So we did a lot of events. And I remember there was one night where we did this event. It was the craziest event. It was way out in the Bronx, and the event had nothing really to do with books, but I think I had like emailed the people and convinced them that, like, this, you want us there, you need us there. And it was just, nothing was a waste of time, because that was also a big learning that, like, anywhere you showed up, anywhere you put your footprint, something always came out of it. But like, I was putting my footprint everywhere. And we went to this event. I don't remember if we probably sold one book each, if that. And then it was super late. It was Independence Day. And we were thinking, well, Ghanaians on Independence Day will want our book, but they don't care about that. They're looking to, like, buy some good food, drink, party. And anyway, so we're like on the subway now, way out in the Bronx. None of us lived, I lived 2 hours away. She lived about an hour and a half away. And then I think we started trying to sell the book on the train.
No.
And at that point, I mean, yeah, like, but I remember like being down for that. Like, I really embraced the challenge of getting the book out there. And it really has paid off because the relationships that I was able to make just doing that, like being willing to go anywhere, do anything, and also just seeing how the book business, it doesn't have, like, the way it works, it's really set up for a certain kind of writer. It's really set up for a writer who's already successful, because publishing companies are, they put out a certain amount of books a year, and they can really, their staff is not, their staff is limited. So they can't really logistically put their energy and their efforts into every single project. And so they're really set up for, like, Stephen King. Stephen King is coming out with the book. Of course, you know what I mean? All the things, all the resources are marshaled behind him. But for new writers, the goal is like, okay, we're going to do what we do. We're going to send the, advance copies to the press. We're going to, maybe do a targeted mailing to a couple people and set up maybe a couple of events for you. And then you're on your own. So if the book doesn't blow up within like what they've done, it's kind of like the book dies. So it's on the author to really push, tap into your networks, tap into your audience. And so I'm glad that I had that experience, because it really taught me that, one, I'm a market woman. I did not know I was an African market woman. Like, I would be on the subway, I would be at festivals shouting at people like, "Hey, come, you want to see my book? Come see my book." Like, and it also just taught me, like, there is a way, but you have to fight for it, and you have to fight through it. And it is hard, it is uncomfortable, but it does pay off. It does pay off.
I would have loved to have you shout at me on the subway and try to get me to buy your book. There is so much that you shared, and thank you so much. And that theme of commitment really stands out. About it's not going to be easy. It's what you said at the beginning about there's never going to be a perfect set of circumstances it's not going to be handed to you on a plate. Like, the invitation to create is not an invitation to the easy road. It's not, here we're rolling out red carpet, and here, go to this point and go to that next point. But when you have a gift and you have a passion and something that you've got that fire in your belly about, then it's almost like you're compelled to do it. You have to do it. And just with the stories that you shared about, like, going to the Bronx, and like, there was an event that probably had nothing to do with writing, but you're like, hey, you want us there. That compulsion to still create and put it out into the world in whatever way that you want it to me, shows you to be someone who, whatever the outcome, whatever the results, in terms of definition of success, sales, or anything, you're someone who, to me, is living purposefully. You're using your gifts. You're honoring those gifts. You're creating with those gifts, and you're finding a way to put it out into the world. And it is being of service to other people. Something else that you shared that was interesting and surprising was just how it's not necessarily been easy to do the next book. It's not necessarily been easy. Just, oh yeah, I got this done once, it's in the bag, and now I know how to do this. There's still challenges. There's still a call to go deeper, in a sense. And just having that humility to realize that, well, maybe this book, its time has passed, or maybe it's not its time yet. And having that level of self-awareness to know when what you're doing is, maybe it's just for you, for that time period and for that internal journey, and when it's for someone else or for others. But I really got a kick out of hearing you talk about that children's book, which, by the way, is it out? And just the joy and pleasure you got from it.
It's supposed to come out early next year, early 2022.
Exciting. So definitely keep me posted about that, because something that you had so much joy in creating is definitely going to be something that brings joy to others. So what you've shared now is, I think, an important starting point. Like, it will be hard. There's no perfect circumstance, because I think a lot of people, when they want to create, they're waiting for the signal, they're waiting for the perfect setup. And you disabuse us of the notion that that perfect setup is going to come. So if you're going to do it, just jump right in, because circumstances are never going to look better than they look today. So what has been, if anything, been easy about your creating journey? We know what's been challenging, we know what the ups and downs are, but has there been points that you're like, oh yes, this feels good, this is easy, and where you feel a sense of flow?
Hmm. That's a good question. I think what has been easy? I think what has been nice, I don't know if it's been easy, but what has been what has been nice is that I still love writing. And there was a time in the middle of this journey of this second book where I was so frustrated, and I hate it. I didn't hate writing, but it's this whole writing situation has changed my relationship to reading,
Hmm.
because I used to love reading, and I began to hate reading because when I was reading books, I was very judgmental. I was like, my book is way better than this. They're published, and I had a lot of jealousy, a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, and so I couldn't enjoy books anymore. Thankfully, that has changed. And that's mainly because I got an opportunity to read to make some recommendations to a publisher. And as I was reading reading for that purpose, it reignited my love for what writers do and what writing is. It's not easy work. It is so hard, but it's so necessary. We need our stories reflected back to us. We need them documented. We need that. And it's hard work, but it's worth it. And that made me love reading again. And so that was a nice byproduct of the real hard emotional journey that this second book has been. And also, I've always liked writing, loved writing. And I think when Powder Necklace came out, I was at a place in my life where I was really doing well in my career. I was working in content management for a fashion retail company, and I really was doing well there, and I was doing well. I'll just backtrack a little bit. I think for me, one of the things that I was thinking as I was working on Powder Necklace was like I would always have to put working like a 9 to 5 job first and the book second, and writing my passion second. And when Powder Necklace came out in 2010 and I was working, all I had was, my 2 week vacation that I could take to do promotion, and then that was it. And I knew then that I had to make a decision to turn my 9 to 5 into the side hustle and my passion into my main thing. And I didn't, I'm an African child of African immigrant parents who are not trying, like, it was very important to me to be financially successful. So anyway, that was like in 2012, I made the decision to quit my job and to go full-time freelance and make my writing my focus. And that was a journey in and of itself, because freelance, it scared the crap out of me to do that, because I'm a person who really likes everything sort of like, I like to know when I'm getting my paycheck, because I have low key control issues, and so I needed everything to be perfect. And so to put myself in that position, I will never forget that I quit, I think it was in July, and I had some savings, so I took some time to just travel a bit. And I came back to New York in October of that year, of October of 2012. And I remember as the plane landed in JFK, as the plane was descending, I felt my heart descending with the plane, because I was like, okay, now you're back. Now this is real. You are doing this. and I was terrified. And it seemed like just around the time that I was, I had been freelancing on the side of my work 9 to 5, because I was always like just doing a bunch of different things. And just as I decided to go full time freelance, had quit my job, one of my clients told me that due to budgetary issues, they have to pay me basically like 25% of what they were paying me before. So I was like, okay. So I had to swallow that. And then it was just a lot of decisions in that time. And then another client, did this, another client did that. So I had to kind of pivot and do freelancing that I didn't necessarily want to do, but that was well paid. So then I went through a period of, oh my goodness, I'm actually making more money than I was making in my 9 to 5 as a freelancer. So I was just chilling. I was like traveling everywhere. I was living my life. It was awesome. And as I was trying to sell this book that was just not getting sold. And so I had to make a decision at some point where I had to because the freelancing began to take over my life and take over my time, because it was affording me a certain kind of lifestyle, and I also loved it because of, the freedom it gave me. So I felt like this is amazing, whatever. But anyway, all this to say that I had to make a decision. And so I was freelancing at this one company that was paying me so well that I knew that I would never leave unless they kicked me out, which is what happened. Okay, which is a God thing. And it's funny because this was sort of, I think this was like 2018. No, 20, yeah, 2018 is when I left them, but probably in 2017, end of 2017, I had started writing the children's book because I was just like, feeling very morose, and this book was giving me so much joy. And I started looking for agents, emailed a bunch of agents, and then kind of forgot about it. And then in early 2018, probably in about February or March of 2018, I got a message from this agent who's now my agent that, like, oh, he's found this book really interesting, wanted to talk to me about it anyway. So just as that was happening, I get the word from this freelance company, the company I was freelancing for, that they're letting go of freelancers. And I was just like, okay, this is the time. This is the time. And then shortly after that, I sold the children's books. I was like, okay, I know God is telling me, like, your days of that is over. And for the next 2 years, everything slowly but surely, all my freelance clients started, like, one just stopped doing that business, another one changed the way they were hiring me. I used to get like maybe 20 hours of work from them a week, and then it turned into like 1 hour of work a week. So just a lot of things were shifting, and I was like, God is like, you got to make that decision, talking about commitment. And so that's what I had to do. I had no choice but to really invest everything into my writing. And so I had a lot of savings, thankfully, from the period of just like golden freelance, that golden freelance
The
era.
golden years.
Um, yeah. Well, I will. Those were not my golden years. I know. I'm believing God that there's more
They're
gold.
still up ahead. They're
There's
still up ahead.
titanium ahead. Anyway. And then shortly after that, probably about a year later, I sold my second book. And so I knew that this is a God thing. This is where I'm supposed to be. It's been challenging because, now I am in a position where, I thought I was going to, like, wanted to be in when I first went freelance. But that itself was an emotional journey of just letting go of the security of having a job, letting go of the security of having a lot of money, and really then, committing to the work in a specific way. And I know, and I just say that because I feel like for anybody who's a creative who also has to work, there are it looks different for everyone. So it's not to say like you've got to quit your job and do this, but I think that there does come a point where you have to make the decision of what is the most important thing, because you can't serve two masters. After a certain point, you burn out. because kind of what pushed me to go freelance in the first place. I resented the fact that when my novel came out, I didn't have the time to promote it. You know what I mean? All I could do was do stuff on the weekends. And I saw, because in 2012, I sent myself on a book tour using my vacation days. And I said, wow, if I had been able to do this in 2010 when my book first came out, like it was really important to do that. And so I had to make that decision. And I think that there comes a time in every creative's life where, and it will look different for everyone, but where they will have to really align with the thing that they really are passionate about and make that the main thing and make everything else the side hustle in terms of your energy, in terms of the investment that you put into it.
So what I hear is that there are going to be multiple points to make a decision and to recommit. Sometimes it's not a one-time thing. Sometimes you'll have multiple opportunities and multiple calls to come back to really answer that question. Is this something that's important to me? Am I committed to this? How committed am I to this? And what's my priority? And what's interesting about your journey is that you had the 9 to 5, and then you had this moment where the freelance was so amazing, powerful, and beneficial. And there came another choice, another moment of, well, is the writing important to me, and how important is it? Because this other thing that was great and beneficial was threatening, it seems, to potentially swallow that up. And whether you made the decision or God made the decision for you, everything conspired to bring you to a decision point where you got to choose again, and commit again to the hard road, but commit to the road of creating. And I like what you said about it doesn't have to be, and it won't look the same for everybody, because everyone has different gifts and different ways in which they want to contribute, and different ways that everyone might not be a writer, but there are other things that they have the skills for, and what they have the skills for may not have an entire industry, right? Writing has an entire industry behind it. So there is a whole other apparatus that they could potentially be getting into. For others, it might just be, them tinkering away in their basement on whatever thing that they're doing. But whatever that is, there is a great character development journey and story that I'm hearing from what you're sharing about becoming more and more of a person who's committed to what it is that you're about, and the gifts that yields and brings forth. So many lessons, and clearly so many unexpected lessons as well. And I thank you for sharing them and sharing these. There are a lot of nuggets that I can pull out and definitely share and keep sharing with my listeners as we go forward on their own creating journey as well. So thank you so much for sharing.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for creating this platform. It is so important. I think that, people who are creative and want to create, we need support, we need encouragement, we need a network of people that we can cry to, we can complain to, and, find support and strength from. So I thank you for creating this platform, because it does that.
So, what's your final word to the Reframe to Create listener, the person who is right now in their 9 to 5 thinking about, do they have the time? Will they devote the time to that gift that they have to create something? What are your final thoughts from your journey, either in the past or that you're on right now? What would you like to share with them, leave them with?
Be flexible. It does not have to look a certain way, and it may not look a certain way. I think that it's really easy to look at other people's journeys, or people that you admire, or maybe somebody who's doing exactly what you want to be doing, and think, I have to follow their path. But I really do believe that every single person has a very unique path, like a fingerprint, that is going to be theirs. And so while we can take inspiration from other people, be open and flexible to how it's going to look for you. That would be my takeaway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed having Nana and learning so much from her dogged commitment to using her gift of writing, following her path wherever it's taken her. And now I can see a running theme of sorts with all of my guests. In episode 9, Maura helped us to discover that there's no perfect venue for creating. And in episode 15, Chitty helped us to realize that there's never a perfect time. And now in this episode, Nana has showed us that there's never going to be a perfect set of circumstances for creating. No perfect venue, no perfect time, no perfect set of circumstances. The invitation to create is not an invitation to the easy road because perfection does not exist. So you've got to hold on to your gift, your fire, and just stay committed to your path. And you won't be invited to commit just one time. There'll be multiple decision points when you'll be invited to recommit and choose to create with your gifts again. And as Nana showed, it's also not necessarily something that's going to get easier after you've been successful the first time. So don't be alarmed if things get harder. But no matter what your journey is, and it will be different for every single person, stay on the path and keep going. It's totally worth it. If you want to learn more about Nana and be the first to hear about when her children's book and the next novel drops, you can keep up with her by visiting her website, nanabrewhammond.com, which I've also shared in the show notes. See you soon, Creating Maven. Until then, remember to always ask yourself, what will I create?